I would like to share a thread of my memories as I was being raised up. I spent most of my childhood being raised up by my grandma and grandpa. And I can remember my grandpa was a hard worker. He did many things. I could talk for hours about him. And most of the time that I knew him, he worked in out on the farms and stuff, irrigating and plowing and stuff like that. And he actually saved up enough money and bought a place in Atwater, California. And so we moved to Atwater, and there he worked. I can, I mean, just every day from daylight to dark, and he was able to come up. His dream then was to have this farm and have it all planted and alfalfa, not alfalfa, but grazing land, and to run cattle there, and then to actually feed the cattle on out and make his living like that. And actually, he did real good. He started off raising cotton, and I won't go into all of the things that he did, but anyway, he was well on his way to really being in great financial shape. He had cows, he had the land paid for, and Granny, my grandmother, well, she she was diagnosed with cancer, and kind of just skipping on through the story a little bit, is that what happened is that he had this land and he had a little money in the bank and stuff. And a couple of 3 years later, and 6 or 7 operations, he was completely broke and living in a trailer house behind his daughter's, which is my aunt's house. And Granny was in a coma at that time in the house. And back then, I don't know. I don't know if anybody even heard of health insurance. Surely people that worked on farm labor didn't, you know. And anyway, that completely broke him. And so, that was a real, that really stands out in my mind. And not only that, some of the first experiences that I remember, because even when we had the farm in Atwater, well, we would go out and do and follow picking peaches and picking cotton, cutting grapes, and stuff like that. And we did that after Granny died, and I lived with my grandpa. Well, we did that a lot. But as a kid, some of my first memories, I won't say the first ones, but some of the first memories I ever had was riding in the back of a pickup to go out to a peach field to pick up peaches. I couldn't get up in the trees, but I could go around and pick up what they call culls and put them in. And or either um, standing around a campfire in a cotton field at the end of the rows and cotton fields around they burnt tars back in them day, a tar, regular old car tar, and they would burn it, and that made the heat. And so you couldn't pick cotton if there was any dew on it at all, because it wasn't good. They couldn't gin it right, and they didn't want to pay you for damn cotton, because you got paid by the pound. But anyway, these are some of my first memories, and the thing I guess that still stands out in my mind is that not only that is that we lived in a when I lived with Grandpa after Granny died, well, we lived in what was used to be called a labor camp, but it really was more than a labor camp there in McFarland. A family owned it, but they had these little houses like the labor deals was, and it was real low income um, um, people that lived there, and Mr. Darrington, well, they kept it real um, as much family oriented as possible. It was people that worked in the fields and stuff, but it gave them a place to live to where we had a community shower. You went down and there was a brick building and there was a shower and the bathrooms was there. And then these houses was just where you lived. And so I spent many a time there, and I had plenty of opportunity in all of them experiences. And then I worked in the fields for a while when I was a teenager, um, of meeting all these different people. That was, I mean, good, hardworking people, but that's just all that they knew and all that they could do to get ahead. And the thing of it is that that's where they was stuck. And sure, they are success stories. And I, then later, well, I went into when I got to working in the oil fields, and I got my job in the oil fields. I won't go into it, but basically, a brother-in-law got me on a drilling rig, was able to get me to be able to work on a drilling rig. I won't go in. That's a good story, but I can tell it. But anyway, the thing of it is that I went to work on drilling rigs and stuff, and I worked with hard working people there and everything, but it's seasonal. And I worked in the oil fields for 50 years. And the thing of it is that during that time, I had a wide range of jobs in the oil fields. I mean, that was, I don't know. We used to kid about that. We, didn't graduate out of the ninth grade, but we had a master's degree in oil field. But anyway, the uh, the thing of it is that I've worked with a lot of people, and I have seen a lot of people that this smart as a rock, and they shoot to the top, and they do good, and uh, and I've seen them, people that actually during that time I've had people that when they first went and work in the oil fields, they worked for me on a crew or something. And when I left the oil fields, well, they'd done passed me up and was in higher management in these companies, and good for them. They're good for them. And but anyway, there's a lot of these people that was hard working people. And for some reason, let's face it, I mean, the truth of the matter is that some of us are really lucky, and I am one of them. And then there's some of us that aren't, and then there's some of us that don't quite. I'm not saying that you're mentally completely destroyed or anything, but the mental capacity, this is not able to advance in anything other than what they're doing. In other words, they just mentally don't have what it takes to be able to to get better off. And some of the people, well, they destroy their minds on drugs or alcohol, and and that's the reason. But a lot of them, it's got to do mentally. And I mean, used to we had mental institutions until the 80s that they were there was that literally hundreds of thousands of people in these institute. And actually, Reagan cut the funding for it and said, that they shouldn't be in in these institutes. They might not want to be in there, So I'll leave that like it is. I don't know. I just have different feelings about that. But anyway, as a result of that, right now, through all these years of working with people and seeing many different people, up close and working with them and stuff, is that there is a lot of people that just flat don't have the mental ability to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, but they work. And the trouble of it is that in the oil fields and other things, well, sometimes your work get cuts out from underneath you. And then when the labor market really shrinks, unless you have a good reputation and can go someplace and get a job and have the mental ability to show people that you're qualified to do that, you are really left out then. And that's a fact. Now, we have a bunch of freeloaders, and we always have had a bunch of freeloaders, and that needs to be separated out of the equation because I believe in work. I always tried to instill that in my kids, and I know that they have that, and I thank God that they do because that if you can get ahead, you're either going to be a thief or you're going, and that ain't too good. You usually wind up going to jail, or you're going to work your butt off and you know make a living. Uh, but there is a lot of circumstances why people can't actually um, pull themselves up out of their situations. It's complicated. Personally, I have, like I said, I don't believe in freeloaders, but I know I don't personally, I do not put everybody that is on welfare and that is needs assistance as being bumming off and getting my money. That revolts me when I hear it, because you're talking about, for one, I mean, a woman, I won't mention her name, but it's a woman who had 6 kids, and she lost her husband when she was pregnant with her last kid. And she raised them 6 kids on her own. Her dad and mom wasn't worth shooting, they wouldn't help her. But she did everything that she could to keep them kids in shoes to go to school. And she would iron at night, and she would hold cotton, everything that she could, raising these 6 kids. And later one of them got older, and he tried to help her, and he did help her a little bit and stuff. But I mean, she was like that. When I met her, she was on welfare. Now, my God, who in the hell would throw somebody like that off of welfare? What little bit she got just kept them from starving to death. It didn't get them no big deal and stuff. And there's a lot of people that was like that. Today, maybe there isn't quite as many, but from what I see when I go out there, I see two things. But one of them damn sure is that there's a lot of people out there that I know when you talk to them and stuff, they don't have they're stuck, and they just don't have the mentally ability to get out of their situation. And do I think are to cut them off from having health care? Or do I think are to cut them off from getting subsistence? Absolutely not. To me, that's cruel hearted, and not just cruel hearted, but it is calloused. Um, but that still saying that, yeah, I know there's a lot of fraud out there, and that's what they are to work on, is the fraud and stuff like that, and that's hard to do. But just the deal of cutting them off, everybody cutting them all off, or even just cutting the money on it. If you just cut the money on it, and they just take and cut 15 or 25%, or never how much they are, on everything off, well, it is usually them people that's at the bottom is going to get cut just as much as these freeloaders. So anyway, enough on that. Um, the Anyway, that's kind of what I just wanted to share. That is one of my experiences. That's the reason, and the reason that I believe that the way that I do. And so anyway, that is just one little thread.